the cage match, but that moment in the cage match. So this was the second ever monthly 3-hour TNA pay-per-view. Remember they were doing monthly pay-per-views? That's how you got to watch TNA. And the main event was this. The show was actually Randy Savaj's first and only match after WCW. So you figured that maybe good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. It is Saturday, September 23rd, and you know what that means. It's time for the High Risk Wrestling Podcast. And like a couple other wrestlers this week, I am also without work, but I'm still here coming to you live and direct. As always, you know you can check me out on the socials, Charismatic Creations on Facebook and YouTube, Charismatic _ Creations 52 on Instagram, the 215 that is spelled out on Twitter, and of course Coffee, Patreon donations are always welcome. In today's show, seeing as how we are celebrating Impact Wrestling, can't take the good without looking at the bad, and today we're going to look at the bad times of Impact Wrestling. You know exactly what we're going to talk about. I'm going to try to have some fun with it, though, but for now, you know what's next, so just go on and hit my music. So you're going to hear one name a lot during this show, a few others, but number one, you're going to hear Hulk Hogan. He was the man put in charge. He was the man given power by Dixie Carter, and he made some signings. He made some truly crazy signings. So here are the 5 worst signings of the Hulk Hogan era. Number 5, we have to go with the Jersey Shore cast. Now, yes, they were big stars, quotation mark into stars, and ratings. That was going on. You were going to bring them ratings. It didn't work out. They were paid more than they were paid Robbie E, who was working the same gimmick. Then they got paired up with the Beautiful People. It was just dumb. I get the signing. I will never ever like it. Number 4, the Nasty Boys. Really? We brought in Brian Knobbs and Jerry Sags, Bebop and Rocksteady in 2010. This was why? Because they were friends with Hulk Hogan. What? They had a feud with Team 3D. They were there for 3 months, and then that was it. Why they brought him in? Who knows? Number 3, Bubba the Love Sponge. Now, during this time, right? Bubba the Love Sponge was a shock jock like Howard Stern, just not as good, and he was hired as a backstage interviewer, and ultimately what happened, he got his ass beat by Awesome Kong for pissing her off. Like, he said something really stupid and she beat his ass. Kong got fired, but Bubba got fired too, mainly for saying the racist stuff to Kong on the radio show. It was why I get bringing an outside individual who works in radio to, liven up things and do that kind of work. He was not the right person. Number 2, Hulk Hogan's daughter, Brooke Hogan. Now, we all know nepotism rules and reigns. So, of course, Hulk Hogan, and at one point, Eric Bischoff would hire their kids. But Garrett Bischoff started out as a referee before becoming a minor member of the Aces and Eights. Brooke Hogan, on the other hand, was put into a role of authority over the Knockouts. And she would have a secret on-screen relationship with Bully Ray, and then a marriage and a divorce, All this was going on during the Aces and Eights era. She contributed nothing. And number one, Val Venus. Just why? He tweaked his gimmick, and he was only here for 3 months. Was in a match with Christopher Daniels at pay-per-view, and then that was it. Actually, I'm sorry. His stint lasted a month. He only had 3 matches. Make it make sense. Hulk Hogan was just doing stuff, and part of the blame goes to Dixie Carter. We'll be right back. I want to keep this superstar spotlight short and to the point. Hulk Hogan was not good for Impact. Dixie Carter hiring Hulk Hogan was not good for Impact. Dixie Carter giving him power was not good for Impact. And I will be the first to admit that even though the Hulk Hogan era of TNA was pretty bad, he actually did some good. And we're going to talk about that as well. But a man that was stuck in the past, a man that brought in his friends, a man that made one really, really stupid move, and it almost cost them. That's not even including Dixie Carter still secretly hiring Vince Russo. Hulk Hogan should have been a boon and a get for Impact. It wasn't. And we're lucky that we've been able to grow and move past it. So, as I've stated, we always have to take the good with the bad. And even though Impact is honestly really, really good right now, and in my opinion, they're probably the best company right now putting on a consistently good show, there was some bad. And there was some major bad. So let's just dive into it, and we're going to today talk about the bad times of Impact Wrestling. So how did this start? Well, Impact had a really good growth, and they were growing, and they were getting really, really popular. Jeff Jarrett, AJ Styles, Christian, Sting, Kevin Nash, the X Division, Samoa Joe. They were putting on really good content. They had a really good show on a really good channel that supported them. And then things changed. In October of 2009, Dixie Carter hired Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff. Okay. Sure. But, okay, you want to say you want to change and you want to grow. I got that. But Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff proved that they're failures. One needs to look no further than WCW. Period. So what was Dixie's other option? She could have hired Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman was on the outs with the WWE, and we all know the kind of wrestling genius that Paul Heyman is. The reason ECW failed wasn't because of the creative and the booking. It was because of the money. It's because Paul Heyman was bad with money. But when it comes to being a wrestling genius, he's second to none. I'm sorry, he's better than Vince. He's better than Bischoff. He's better than Tony Khan. And Dixie didn't hire Paul Heyman because he wanted to push younger stars. He didn't want to fool around with Kurt and Sting. He wasn't going to not push the older established talent, but he wanted to push younger talent. So you have a good mixture of veterans and up and coming stars to give you a good company, kind of like what's happening right now in AEW. What's happening, honestly, what's going on right now in the WWE. Even though some of their stars are older, they're starting to build the new stars. So, Dixie hired Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan to a deal, right? And because of that deal, they were able to sign with Jakks Pacific with a 5-year deal for action figures. The first major change that Hulk Hogan did was he and Bischoff moved Impact to Monday nights to oppose Raw. That's what he did. And they stayed on Mondays from October 2009 to March 8th, 2010. They moved back to Thursdays because, they were getting their asses handed to them. He brought in people. He brought in Flair and RVD and Mr. Anderson. Jeff Hardy made his return, and Impact went back to Thursday nights. But there was just still too much going on. Hogan and Bischoff pushed people and signed people and put them in a hole financially. Then Dixie was told, hey, she was told by Spike TV, we don't want to be associated with Vince Russo anymore. Period. So she claimed she fired him. And she didn't. She was secretly sending emails and she accidentally CC'd someone on Spike. And that's how Impact, TNA at the time, lost their TV deal. Then came the financial woes. Many of the well-known veterans that helped establish the company left. AJ Styles left, and they wanted him to take a 60% pay cut. Jeff Jarrett, who founded the company, left, but remained on as a quote-unquote investor. And he was going to start a new promotion called Global Force Wrestling. That's a different story for a different day. More people left. Sting, Chris Sabin, Hernandez, Christopher Daniels, Kazarian. People that helped build Impact. Bully Ray, gone. Devon, gone. Spike didn't renew their contract. So now they're down on the outs. What would they do? They moved to Destination America. Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins came in, brought kind of the company and started running it himself. Then people started to resign, but it wasn't enough. TNA ended up having many TV deals moving around back and forth, and it just wasn't enough. See, Hulk Hogan ruined something great, and by proxy, so did Dixie Carter, because she should have never hired Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff. She was convinced that by bringing them two in, they could triumph over the WWE. She was wrong. Hogan and Bischoff, instead of building on what the company had established, decided to flip the company upside down. It was brutal. Hogan was so convinced that with him being in charge, TNA was ready to take on the WWE, and they failed. Him and Bischoff tried again, and they failed. What ultimately went wrong? Hogan pushing aging veterans over the full-time wrestlers. Remember when that happened where he didn't want to go over Hulk Hogan, I'm sorry, he didn't want to go over. He didn't want Shawn Michaels or Randy Orton to go over him. The show was turned into an imitation of WCW. TNA went from having great athletic matches that were long, that took up time and helped propel stories forward. We got a bunch of pointless vignettes and promos, most of them centered around Hulk Hogan. And then there was one sole storyline through this entire run. One major storyline. And that was the Aces and Eights. A biker take of the NWO. If you want to pick something more recent, Sons of Anarchy. Hogan was given so much power, including creative, including the power to hire people. He filled the roster with junk. The Nasty Boys, Bubba the Love Sponge, his own daughter, who he put in charge, kayfabe, in charge of the knockouts, and in real life. Like, TNA went from a solid number 2 company to the laughing stock of professional wrestling. Fans got pushed out. Fans stopped caring. Impact TNA got beaten in the ratings. And just like before, it looked like WCW. This is all thanks to Dixie Carter, Hulk Hogan, and Eric Bischoff. And it sucked. Something that was great was now bad. Hiring Hogan was bad. Giving him hiring power was bad. Now, it's up to you if you decide if this decision was good or bad, but bringing a 4-sided ring instead of the 6 and getting rid of the 6-sided ring. The 6-sided ring was unique, and it made Impact unique. The fans chanted, "We want 6 sides." This set TNA apart, and it just didn't work. Him feuding with Ric Flair over their WWE Hall of Fame rings. You remember that? These were just MacGuffins to be tossed around. It ended in a lethal lockdown match. Team Flair being consisted of Sting, Ric Flair, Bobby Roode, James Storm, Nigel McGuinness taking on Team Hogan, Abyss, Hogan, Jeff Jarrett, RVD, and Jeff Hardy. Now, in any other company, that would be a star making match, and it just didn't work. They redid the Bash at the Beach, and y'all remember the Bash at the Beach. Bound for Glory 2010 was being ran in the same arena as the Bash at the Beach. And it was a 3-word title match between Jeff Hardy, Kurt Angle, and Mr. Anderson. And it featured the same ending with Hulk Hogan standing tall, forming Immortal, a doomed faction. Making Hulk Hogan an authority figure, bad. Hiring his daughter, bad. The drama between Brooke and Bully and the wedding, and just bad. Unmasking Suicide, bad. And then the quitting TNA segment that had Dixie Carter begging Hulk Hogan to stay. It was all just bad. And there were so much more ridiculous things we got. We got Hogan giving Abyss his Hall of Fame ring, Eric Bischoff feuding with the X Division, the Nasty Boys trashing Team 3D's locker, Bischoff and his wheelchair, whatever that was, Bubba the Love Sponge joining the band, redoing the Montreal screw job. Destination X, the pay-per-view, ended with everybody just falling in a hole in the ring. What RVD got destroyed on his debut. I could go on and on and on, but we needed to do better. And Dixie Carter was so stubborn that she couldn't see the forest before the trees. And I don't know, like, she's not there anymore. She got a bunch of screen time, but it wasn't worth it. It just wasn't worth it. TNA was so hurt by this that it took them a very, very long time to grow and to move. And there were some positive changes. There were some positive changes. Introducing Option X or Option C, which we still call it today, actually works. Is where the X Division champion can cash in, quote unquote, cash in their X Division championship for a shot at the World Championship. And it started with Austin Aries, who won. And we still do that today. The gut check segment gave us some good wrestlers that we got hired. We got more factions for all the faults that the Aces and Eights had. It was a really good faction. And we got Joker Sting. When Sting would need to go on the offensive to start scaring people, Joker Sting would arrive. And he still brings it out today. There are other really good things that happened. The first main event that took place on Monday night was Kurt Angle versus AJ Styles. Doesn't get much better than that. We got the legendary Gail Kim versus Taryn Terrell feud. It's a highlight. It's one of the highlights of Impact's knockouts history. And even though Dixie Carter got jealous of the knockouts overshadowing her, we got this gem. We got TNA Reaction, was like the after show, which is like SmackDown, Lowdown, Raw Live. We got that. We got Magnus and Samoa Joe is a really, really good tag team. D'Angelo De Niro's face turn, Bully Ray becoming Bully Ray, because he was still Brother Ray, but becoming Bully Ray, which he still now uses today. That worked. It justified his world championship run. Madison Rayne breaking away from the Beautiful People, becoming like a 6-time knockouts champion, tag team champion. That worked. The legendary Beer Money Motor City Machine Guns Best of 5 series happened during Hulk Hogan's reign. Bobby Roode's heel turn, becoming the superstar that he became, happened during Hulk Hogan's reign, even though Hogan cost Bobby Roode his crowning achievement at Bound for Glory. And Jeff Hardy's redemption story. Speaking of Jeff Hardy, he only got this redemption story because of, you all know, the absolutely terribly lowest point of the Hulk Hogan era. Jeff Hardy wrestling Sting intoxicated in his lowest point of his career in his life. That should not have happened. That, I repeat, should not have happened. That's the low point of Hogan being in charge. He then buried the company on his way out, allowing Dixie Carter to chastise the roster. When she brought him in, she told him to get in line and gave a whole "my way or the highway" speech. It was tough. It was very, very tough. Very, very stupid. Very, very bad. But Impact has gotten better. And as you know, see now, they have strived for greatness, and they're great now. I want to see Impact grow more. I want to see Impact achieve and be successful. I want them to start being Impact arenas because they deserved it. They just celebrated 1,000 episodes. Impact deserves it, man. They deserved to be watched. They deserve to be recognized, and they deserve to overcome. And that's what they're doing. Impact Wrestling, I am extremely happy, isn't going anywhere. Because every single time we think they're dead, they're not. Every single time we've counted Impact out, they rise back up. So, give them a chance. I do. And they celebrate 1,000 episodes. We still always have to recognize the bad and what they went through. And it was their own fault, mainly Dixie Carter. But she's no longer there. Hulk Hogan is no longer there. Eric Bischoff is no longer there. It's time. I want to see them grow. What about you? That's our show. Thank you very much for listening, for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Next week, we are going to have the show, the Mount Rushmore of Impact. And it's going to be tough. I'm going to have to break it down as like a 4-tier segment. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard because, you know, throughout the week we've been looking at the best tag teams, the best women, the best men. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Don't forget to check me out on the socials, Charismatic Creations on Facebook and YouTube, Charismatic_Creations52 on Instagram, the 215 on Twitter, Coffee, Patreon, and as always, Zia Lee, Gigi Dola, Wendy Chu, Isla Dawn, and Bailey. Holla at your boy. Peace.